Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. So good to be with you guys. Hope you had a good weekend. So, I was working on certain topics over the weekend so I can prepare them for this week. So, to do more research on those topics. So, today I'm going to talk to you about Saudi Arabia. Why is that very, very important? The ones I am now following up on has to do with the Philippines and the possibility of the son of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. might be the next president of Philippines. And what does it mean? And I'm also going to research. I am in the process of researching the financial debts here in the U.S. and what it means. So anyway, let's jump in our topic. But before I do anything, of course, if this is your first time, please subscribe. And also for our viewers, if you are interested in the masterclass we're going to be offering in about 2 weeks from now or so, please make sure to sign up for that, and I will post the link for you at the bottom of the description. So regarding the two questions from last sessions about China and India, whether they work out their differences or not, and whether they are pulling away from Europe, I concur with the majority of the answer. And of course, I noticed in some comments that some of you, not all, of course, but some of you mentioned that, well, India has a long way to go. I agree, and it's make more sense. My reference is that, as I said, I was looking over the horizon, what lies ahead. Yeah, India has a lot of work to do, building an infrastructure, eradicating poverty. There is a lot of issues that social ethnic tensions. They have to resolve all that. Then they have to work out their differences with China regarding the Ladakh area and so forth. So all this is going to take time. But overall, I do concur with your assessments and the answers, and it makes perfect sense. So here's the thing. I want you to keep in mind, like we always do, guys, excuse me, I want you to keep in mind certain key ideas here. One of them has to do with Turkey visit to Saudi Arabia recently. The other one has to do with the new Prime Minister of Pakistan visit to Saudi Arabia last week. I also want you to keep in mind Iran, Saudi Arabia's talks, and the last one, which I already mentioned about 2 weeks ago or so, is the Saudis' agreement to sell oil to China, possibly to sell oil in China in the yuan. So just keep this in mind as I will discuss three key areas. One of them is the internal dynamics of Saudi Arabia. Second one has to do with stability within the kingdom. And the third one has to do with the Saudi Arabia's possession within the new global order. And of course, we cannot ignore talking about oil because it's very, very important. So, all right, let's dive into this. As I said, and I usually provide you a brief analysis as to what it all means, given my familiarity with the topic, and I'll detail as I move forward. So, well, of course, the reason what prompted me to decide on this topic, which was last night, when I get the word about the hospitalization of the King of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, who is 86 years old. So King Salman bin Abdulaziz, he was admitted to the hospital in Jeddah yesterday. Usually, here is the protocol, the way it works in Saudi Arabia. Usually, the royal palace will not disclose the reason why. Usually, it always comes up as a routine checkup or medical examinations. Yes, there could be some serious issues there, health issues, possibly. Given that the king is, first of all, 86 years old, and he went through laparoscopic colonoscopy procedure that afternoon yesterday. So this is where the concerns, but we're not here to talk about the medical stuff. I'm here to talk about the impact after his demise. We're all gonna die. It's a fact of life. I wish him well, of course, like any other human being. But we have to be realistic, given the reality of how it is. So what was interesting about King Salman's health issues is that He was hospitalized, if I am not mistaken, on March 16. I do keep up track with certain things like that for medical examination. And also, one of the things that was the procedure that was done during that time was to change the pacemaker battery that he's using. So in July 2020, he underwent a gallbladder surgery there, and he also went through a spinal hysterectomy, hysterectomy in 2010. So it tells you right there the medical history and the concerns, plus the age and so forth, and that's what prompts me to talk about this. But so first, let me tell you what qualifies me to talk about this topic. I worked in and visited Saudi Arabia officially, representing the United States government back then. So, and I went in on many occasions over there. So I do speak the language, and I grasp the depth of the kingdom's social, cultural, and religious interactions. And from both aspects, the abstract and practical, I do know how Saudi Arabia's internal politics work. This first-hand experience, is necessary, in my opinion, to offer the most salient analysis, if you will, on how Saudi Arabia interacts, how it responds, and how it manages its role within the current geopolitical landscape, not only in the Middle East, but the world writ large. So, in addition to that, I wrote extensively about Saudi Arabia in this book. If you ever get a chance to read it, please do so. There are some stuff that is redacted by order of the United States government. As you may know, I cannot publish stuff without the approval of the United States government. That's just the way it is. But if you get a chance, I disclose some really dark secrets there. I'm going to share some with you, not all, of course. But if you ever get a chance, check out the book, Beneath the Veil, Fall of the House of Saud. So. All right, let's delve into this here. Let's talk about the internal dynamics. And why is this important? Well, the internal dynamics, because here is the thing. To those who have read about the history of Saudi Arabia, how it started, like I disclosed in the book, the Saudi history is marked by some sort of a decade of internal struggling over succession to kinship. And this one among the royal family. Because here is the thing, they form factions in opposition to each other. And this is what prompts me I want you to know and be ahead of it, as far as, we wish him well and all that. But in case the king pass away, you'll be looking at exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So you'll have at least an idea of what's going on. So to an outsider and Westerner, for that matter, the idea who's not familiar with the history of Saudi Arabia or the nature of its tribal mentality, it is a challenging sort of an attempt to try to understand the dynamics taking place within the Saudi royal palace when it comes to succession. It is a big deal. You're not going to hear much about it on the media. The media is not going to disclose that much. It's because that's not something that comes out. But I'm going to provide you some historical examples as to how complicated this issue is. So the succession in Saudi Arabia has been set up, just to let you know. Excuse me. Just to let you know how the succession has been set up. It's been set up on a horizontal pattern, which means what? The succession goes from one brother to the next. A process that is controlled through allegiance, basically. That's how it is, And this formula, firsthand, it was introduced by the founder of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz. And it is what previous Saudi kings have been adhering to until the current king, King Salman, who decided to end this tradition and protocol, you know. And how did he do that? Well, it was in 2016 or 17 when he elevated his son, Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, to crown prince. Now, when you become a crown prince, it means you are next in line to the throne. And that is very problematic. So, and I'm going to detail why. Just of note for you to know, the royal family inside Saudi Arabia consists of about 15,000 members. You know, however, a smaller number of about 2,000 of them possess the majority of the power and wealth. You know, and this small group requires absolute allegiance and has no interest in compromise. So once again, this is why I said, again, the reason they prompted me to really, I had to come on the air and let you guys know about this is because the importance of it, what lies ahead after the demise of the king. Of course, and I can't, we wish him well, of course, and long life, you know, health-wise, but it's just fact of life, you know, and that's how it is. So, and I wanted to address this one. Let me say thank you. Oh, once again, Stephen Rozick, thank you so much for your super sticker, and truly appreciate you kind words and support. It means a lot. So thank you so much for that. So the idea of the succession, as I said again, and I'm going to use history as my guide. There were two incidents in the Saudi history in which succession to kinship occurred through, and I'm going to use the term assassination. First, it happened when the passage of authority from Faisal ibn Turkey to his son Abdullah ibn Faisal ibn Turkey, and this happened between 1785 and 1865. You know, and once again, guys, I have most of the detail, and I remember all this because I wrote the book about it. If you really get a chance to read it, it's worth your time. Take my word for it. The second incident, or second assassination, that is, was committed by Prince Faisal bin Mus'ad bin Abdulaziz. He was 27 years old at the time of the incident. And basically what happened, he shot his uncle, King Faisal, in 1975. And his son, King Faisal's son, Crown Prince Khalid, succeeded the latter to the throne. And the causes of the incident of the assassination of the King Faisal are still unknown. So this is why this kind of the dark secret that I disclosed in the book, you'll find them very, very interesting. I was even surprised some of it the United States government allowed me to disclose. So, but I didn't, you know, it's kind of within the limit, shall we say. Excuse me. Here is what is certain, is that ascending to the throne in 2015, King Salman, the current king, will be remembered forever as the one who altered the course of history and redrew the line of succession in Saudi Arabia. No. When following his demise, his son, of course, Muhammad MBS, will become a king. If this strategy succeeds, expect an internal struggle among royal family members, because it will happen. That's just fact of life. On one hand, there will be those who will advocate for the concentration of power in the hand of MBS. On the other hand, there will be those who will sabotage the new king and quietly revolt against him, and doing so lead to the demise of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia as we know it. Now, there is one thing you need to understand. that the decree that was issued by the founder of Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz, has been based on the succession to the kingship. As I said earlier, brother to brother, you know. But with what King Salman has done or have done in 2015, he basically rescinded that tradition. And since elections have no place in Saudi Arabia's political system, one could expect that the kingdom could descend into chaos. It's like, any country that descends into chaos, we all know what happens with it. And that's going to be very, very problematic. Because here's the thing, while the tradition holds that the succession to kingship goes from one brother to the next, the current king broke that tradition, as I said earlier, by elevating his son, MBS, to crown prince, next in line to the throne. Interestingly, Article 5 of the Kingdom Basic Law of Governance, the equivalency of a constitution. They don't have a constitutional document, of course. What this Article 5 says is that it provides a clear read about the Al Saud family firm grip on the kingdom. And it reads as follows. Let me read it word for word. And I quote here. According to Article 5 of the Basic Law of Governance, rulers of Saudi Arabia will be chosen from among the sons of the founder, Ibn Saud, King Abdulaziz, and their descendants. The order of succession to the throne follows agnatic seniority, meaning paternal seniority, that is from the father part. And since 2006, the Allegiance Council, or Hayat al-Bay'ah, consisting of the surviving sons of the founder, King Ibn Saud, his grandsons whose fathers are deceased, incapacitated, or unwilling to assume the throne. And the sons of the king decide on the succession to the throne. End of quote. That is how important that is to understand this framework, the constitutional, that is. They don't have a constitution, as I mentioned. But here is what's for you to understand the dynamics in a nutshell. The elevation of MBS, who is the son of the current king, his mother is from a different tribe, okay? Because there is one thing you guys need to understand when it comes down to Middle East culture and traditions. Bloodline is very, very, very important. I am sure there are some places in Asia, they have the same tradition. Bloodline is very important when it comes down to kinship. So Mohammed bin Salman, MBS's mother is from a different tribe altogether. So, because who was supposed to be next in line is Mohammed bin Naif, MBN, and I'm going to get into that. And this is why, if you ever noticed, most of the kings of Saudi Arabia, they are in late 70s, early 80s, because it takes them decades to get in line. You have to get in line and wait for your turn. What happened with MBS is that he stepped in front of everybody in line and got to the forefront. And we all know how it feels when you are, for example, in grocery store or whatever, you are in line and somebody cross in front of you. You're not going to like it. So that is what's interesting. Now, let me talk to you about these dynamics hypothetically, should or when the time comes when Saudi king passes away and the crown prince takes over, what it all means within the new global order. Because place Saudis Saudis will have to adjust to that, because remember, in Saudi Arabia, there are some really internal issues. For example, unemployment. You know, there is a massive youth generation between the age of 18 and 28 with nothing to do. You know, the Saudi government usually gives money because to keep everybody quiet and peaceful. Remember when there was the Arab Spring, the Saudis spent few billions and nobody revolted or demonstrated or whatever term you want to use. So the current dynamics are slightly different, you know. And the assessment, and this is why I said earlier, guys, you need to keep in mind the visit of Turkey to Saudi Arabia last week, the current talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and also the visit of the new Pakistani Prime Minister, not Nawaz, Shahbaz Sharif, to Saudi Arabia, asking for about $7 or $8 billion loan, because that's why Pakistan. There is a reason for that. Unfortunately, I can't use that because it's considered very, very sensitive. But there is a reason why Saudis always gives money to Pakistan. This one has to do with the nuclear stuff. So let's talk about the dynamics of the global order, Saudi Arabia within the global order, and what it means for the idea of the idea of how Saudi Arabia is going to sort of manages this new dynamics. It's very important to understand this. So the assessments, in my opinion, of the current landscape in the Middle East, the geopolitical that is, would suggest to me personally, as an analyst myself, that Saudi Arabia lacks a strategy. That's one. And second, it is lost in the political wilderness. And third, is marred by royal internal fighting over succession. And there is a fourth element, which has to do with hampered by a sagging economy and high unemployment rate. Of course, you're not going to hear this. Of course, the media is not going to disclose that, because remember, you, the kingdom, or whoever supporting that, whatever, have to project. Remember, guys, always optics. That picture of stability. The economy is good, everything. It's like what we have here in the US. Does our media talk about inflation? No, we don't. Even though it's double digit. Does the media talk about the national debt, the consequences of it? No, it doesn't. This is why I'm going to talk about it this week, because I just attended a conference last weekend, guys, and there were really some interesting fellows that I listened to, very, very, very informative, and they have a grasp on how the Federal Reserve manages the policies. And if I can tell you, the American people are in for a shock. I just hope they can wake up before it's too late. So, and I'll address that one. So this is the whole idea of why you have to understand the dynamics that's taking place. Like I always say, guys, and I don't want to beat the dead horse here. You always have to look at the trends. So when you look at these changes, with all what I mentioned about Saudi's lacking strategy and so forth, Iran in this case will take advantage of the Saudis' chaos, internal that is, and this is why you are seeing, and as I said earlier, this is why you are seeing the talks re-emerging between Saudis and the Iranians. As a matter of fact, if I am not mistaken, it was the Saudis that initiated that by third party, and the third party was Iraq. As I said earlier, guys, I spend a lot of time in the Middle East. I am very familiar with the dynamics. So, and this is why I put that notion of understanding. You put this within the context of Iran and Saudi Islam. So, because what? Iran is convinced about the Saudi failed policies like in Yemen, like in Syria, and the de facto leader, MBS, that is, he's young. What it suggests only is his lack of experience, because that's how he ends up in Yemen. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, and if you have not, please do so. Just follow me on Twitter. I post some stuff there, and I just posted today a picture. If the picture, just go to my Twitter, follow me there, and you see it. If that picture couldn't shake your conscience, I don't know what will. And the result, and because of the picture, is the result of the war launched by the prince, who did not understand that despite your military might in comparison to Yemen, you won't be able to win a war. And that's exactly what has happened. So his lack of experience is what led to that. But also his naivety, he's naive that changing realities on the ground doesn't come from the military use. You will think he will learn from our experience in Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and all other places. And this is where that importance of understanding global politics, geopolitics, is not about the military might. We found that out 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq and so forth, and trillions of dollars lost. And we didn't even win. We found that out in Vietnam. We found that out the Korean War. So what made him so convinced that I'm going to launch a military offensive attack in Yemen and quelch whatever? And here it is. Years later, they're still fighting there against defenseless Yemenis. I spent time in Yemen, guys. I am very familiar with that country as well. They got nothing there. So I want to mention to you, global oil supply. That is very important to understand, because here's the thing: a destabilized Saudi Arabia will be bad for global business, especially when it comes down to energy supply. You cannot ignore Saudi's role when it comes down to global oil supply. Saudi Arabia has a massive amount of oil. As a matter of fact, when I was there, and I had the talk with the locals and all this stuff, they dig for water and they get oil. So you can become a millionaire overnight if you found oil under your land. That's how much oil they have. They also have the capacity to store that oil. And Russia has a lot of oil, but Russia has a problem because its terrain is not similar to that of Saudi Arabia. This is why Russia cannot store its oil back in the ground. So that is one of the advantages Saudi Arabia has. And this is why also the United States was after finding out the actual reserves of Saudi Arabia. We don't know. The intelligence community in the United States have been trying for years. We never, ever were able to know the exact figures. And Saudis never want to disclose that. It's their right, their prerogative. So, but you can just see how, and this is why it's very important. I'm sorry. This is why it's very important for you guys to understand the link between, any chaos inside Saudi Arabia or destabilizing system, whatever, how it's going to impact the global oil supply. That's very problematic. The other aspect to this has to do with what Saudis have disclosed recently about accepting the payments, especially when it comes out to the delivery to China, by accepting the payments in the Chinese yuan. The other aspect has to do with the Saudis snobbing the United States. Those are not small dynamics, but also those are hints for what lies ahead. If this taking place while the king still alive, what do you think is going to happen after he's gone? And tensions inside the royal palace ensue. Once again, using history, go back to 1975 with the assassination of King Faisal. Those are very, very important dynamics to understand. The other aspects that I need to address has to do with MBS. It's very important to understand. So, Mohammed bin Salman. So, you all know what happened a couple months ago. What about a year plus, whatever, when MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, requested to detain the royal members. You remember when he detained the royal members of the royal family in the Ritz-Carlton inside Riyadh? And I was very familiar with the hotel because I was there in Saudi Arabia, so in Riyadh, so I'm very, very familiar. It's a large Ritz-Carlton hotel. And among those, the princes was none other than Prince Walid. Prince Walid bin Talal is an owner of Twitter. The guy is useless anyway. He's a billionaire, but he got no stamina, shall we say. I have nothing against the prince, but they can't take stand. So basically, what MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, did when he detained them, he asked them to purchase their freedom. That's what happened. Because that's very odd that MBS, when he was elevated to crown prince, portrayed himself as one who championed change and fiscal responsibility. Only when it was revealed that he was the buyer, get this, he was the buyer of an expensive Chateau Louis XIV, which was about $300 million price tag. B, he was the purchaser of Leonardo da Vinci painting Salvador del Mondo, for about $450 million. And the most expensive art sales in history. And the third was the purchase of a $500 million yacht from a Russian vodka financier. And this is where I had a hard time, because I wrote about this extensively, not only in the book, but I had some other articles. If you can check out my blogs, you'll see some articles there. What I found very ironic is that Thomas Friedman, who is a journalist here, had to flip-flop so quick and change his narrative when in one article he criticized the Saudi prince, the latest champion for arrest and detention. And only in a matter of a few weeks, he was dispatched to Riyadh to write down another article that praises the crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. And he did. That's why I lost my respect for him, because he was bought. Straightforward. Let's not sugarcoat it. So he, Thomas Friedman, categorized the prince as a leader, the leader dictatorship style, as an Arab Spring from top to bottom. And I even said in my article, really, Mr. Friedman? I do not question Mr. Friedman's intellectual capacity, but I certainly question his judgment in light of this unexpected turn of events. Because here's the thing, and this is my personal opinion, guys. And I always stand by my own conviction and my own opinions. And when I am wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll say I am wrong. I corrected the record. There's no shame, because you don't want to be this ego, this high and mighty that you don't make mistakes. You are above anybody else. No, you're not. None of us is. We humans, we're fallible. We make mistakes. The question is the courage. Some of us do have the courage to come forward and say, hey, I made a mistake, I admit to it, I like to fix it. And there are the other types that shift the blame, which is shame on that, because that's how I look at it. You know, Bill 81,000, thank you so much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. Because to me, that's what leadership is all about. Leadership can be tested during the hard time, when it matters, not in only peaceful time, when things are good and all that stuff. Yeah, we all will be fine at that time. It's in times of trials that you find out about people with true character. And that's why, respectfully, I kind of lost respect for Mr. Friedman, because that's it. And I used to read a lot of his stuff, but I'm done. Because if you flip-flop that quick, that tells me right there where do you stand on. And this is not a personal thing against Mr. Friedman. This is against anybody who behaves that way. And if I happen to know, I will call them out on it. So, and that is why I truly appreciate you guys. I mean it. I appreciate you when I make a mistake and you guys put a comment that said, I disagree with you, Dr. O, because you made a mistake. I truly welcome that. And I sincerely appreciate it, because that, to me at least, makes me always remember I'm just a human being. I'm subject to making mistakes. And this is not your comment is not about embarrassing or diminishing whatever. It's about ensuring. And that's why I welcome your comments. So this is where I see the problem with Thomas Friedman's whatever, when you're saying the because here's the thing. What I shared with you as far as the investments that the prince made about the yacht and the chateau and all that stuff, because to me personally, it casts doubt. It casts doubt about the prince's ability to transform the kingdom, to transform it and move it forward through what he calls this Vision 2030. Well, it's questionable. That's the way I see it. That is how I see it. So here's the thing. In conclusion, because I'm going to conclude this, guys. And I want just to let you know, as I said earlier, there are, and I use the term dark secret that I disclosed in this book. So some of it is redacted, is the way it is. But, and I mean it, if you ever get a chance to read this, it truly will provide you a clear understanding of why the Middle East is the way it is, why the US behaved towards Saudis, and why the Saudis act the way they act. So it's worth reading if you ever get a chance. So, but let me share one dark secret with you. And here's the thing, the rise of MBS, excuse me, it came right after King Salman ordered then his nephew, and his nephew was Crown Prince Mohammed bin Nayef MBN, to set aside. Excuse me. And the reason being is because MBN, Mohammed bin Nayef, addiction to pain-killing drugs. That was one of the reasons. So with the rise of tensions among the royal family members, there is no clarity to what might happen next. Because I read the history of it. I kind of, read enough about it to see in setting like this what happened. And here's the thing. In the case of the MBS, the latter descended to power by cutting a line in front of other royal members like Mohammed bin Nayef. Because Mohammed bin Nayef was waiting for his turn for decades. Mohammed bin Nayef is in his late 70s or something like that. So the outcome could be disastrous for the monarchy. You know, and as like with even in your own family, hypothetically, your regular family, any family, yours, mine, whatever, no one wants to be outmaneuvered or pushed aside in favor of another member of the family, especially if the favored member of the family is young, impulsive, inexperienced, and manipulative. So in the case of the Al Saud, the royal family, with over 10,000 royal members, I expect that sooner or later, one of those members will try to, and I put this in quote, right the wrong, end of quote, MBS did, through any means. And you can read between the lines. So that's why I found it very, very fascinating as to what's taking place. And once again, I use history as my guide, and I saw what happened in 1975. I saw what happened, for example, between 1865, I believe. I'm sorry, between 1785 and 1865. All this suggests history can repeat itself. And I'm a student of history. I truly believe history repeats itself. There is no other way around it. It becomes the question of how the kingdom will manage after the demise of the king. And that is the reason why I wanted to address this with you. So I'm going to leave you guys with the question of the day. Of course, there is a question of the day. It just, as I said, always, it's just for us to have a conversation, no more, no less. Here's the question. Do you believe Saudi Arabia will pivot towards the east regardless of who is in charge? I repeat, do you believe Saudi Arabia will pivot towards the east regardless of who is in charge? So, as I said earlier at the beginning, guys, I will be working on other topics for you this week. Especially, I am waiting for certain confirmations regarding the Philippines, because it's not official yet. But I wanted to see whether the U.S. had any hands behind it or not, because I need to find out. We all know the history of Ferdinand Marcos. I remember it when I was younger. So anyway, I hope you find this information very useful. And as always, guys, I truly appreciate your support and your kind words as always. So as always, guys, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.